Greg, I hope you're doing well. Welcome into the game here in Tuscaloosa.
Well, thanks, Ryan. How are you doing today?
I'm very well, very well. And I know it's a busy day for you guys, but certainly spending a couple of minutes with us talking about some issues around the University of Alabama and sort of your goals and having a chance to introduce ourselves. I appreciate you coming on for a couple of minutes.
You betcha, anytime.
Let me start with what has happened up in Indiana today with some new NCAA legislation. Any opinions?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, the committee, I guess the council was trying to get their arms around some concerns they had from a football standpoint nationally. But one of the hardest things for them is as they're going through these different topics and issues is really drilling down and trying to understand, what everybody's intentions are through these things. And I think Coach Saban's brought up some really good points of things we've tried to do from a camp standpoint. We still run a traditional camp where you're going to have a lot of young kids out there in middle school and high school who will never play college football, trying to be the best high school players they can or best football players they can be, and they're out there coaching and trying to make sure we get good coaches involved in hiring them to work our camps. And so the intentions are really good. Have there been third parties out there at times that haven't had good intentions? I'm sure there has been. However, there's still a lot of good that takes place there. There's some things that have happened as far as two-a-days and other things like that I think as long as we're all on a level playing field, we'll adjust with those things coming along. But one of the things I've been really impressed, and there's a lot, not one of the things, but one of the many things I've been impressed with Coach Saban and our football program, he genuinely deeply cares about not only Alabama football, but the game of football. And I think he hates to see things that come along that limit our ability to put the best sport out there that benefits the student athletes, that benefits the fans, that benefits what we do from a recruiting standpoint. So, it's interesting to see what's coming down the pipe, and I hope what sometimes is done on the front end, what it looks like down, 2 or 3 down the years as some tweaks come along may look a little different. So, we'll try to get our arms around everything that's taking place and do the best we can moving forward.
Looking at a question, and I hate asking a question based on assumption, but there was a question that came up about a large number of staff members. Alabama certainly has an amazing sports staff, whether you're talking about any part of our athletics, nutrition program, strength and conditioning. I mean, you walk in the facility and you talk to the athletes who have came through this program, how they benefit. If Alabama can afford it, because I noticed that they made a comment about 97 staff members, and then immediately the media pointed that at Alabama. That's a shot at Alabama. If Alabama can afford 97 staff members, I don't really see a problem in that. I see that more of a benefit as a student athlete if you can have that support staff.
Well, I can tell you a couple of things. One, from a coaching standpoint, I believe I'm not 100% not sure if I'm accurate on this, but I believe from a sports standpoint, football has the largest roster of student athletes with these, if you equate to how many coaches they have per student athlete, with the smallest percentage. Now, if it's not the top, it's certainly up there. For instance, in basketball, you have 4 coaches, and you have the head coach and the 3 assistants, and then you have anywhere from 12 to 14 on your roster normally. So obviously a much higher percentage there. So adding an additional football coach on the field, I think, is a good thing. From a staffing standpoint, it depends on how you count things. Obviously, you mentioned it, we have a great nutrition program, dietitian program. That not only helps our football program, it helps all of our sports here. And the same thing with your academic support, with your strength and conditioning programs. Our strength and conditioning coaches, many of them work multiple sports, and so it depends how you want to look at it. Do we staff our department well to benefit the student athlete in our programs and make sure we can be as competitive as we can be? Yes, absolutely, we do. And at the same time, too, I don't think it's something where there is overlap that takes place with a number of our people who are in support roles that helps out all of our student athletes and all of our programs.
Take a look in the crystal ball as you look at college athletics. What are some of the challenges, or maybe some of those larger challenges and possible hurdles that you see for college athletics?
Well, we could probably have a whole show about that, Ryan. It's an interesting time in college athletics. I don't think there's ever been a time where there's been more interest in it, more focus on it. You look at the growth of our campus here at the University of Alabama with with the successes we've had, especially on the football field, and know that, hey, that interest, the success in the program has helped drive a lot of people being interested in the University of Alabama. And at the same time, too, I think we're looking at things. The NCAA is trying to legislate, some time demands and some things. And I understand you've got to make sure there's a balance for people in your program. You got to make sure they can go to class so they can have the academic experiences that they need to succeed. They're still college students. You want them to have some social opportunities as well. At the same time, too, and I think at times we almost feel like we're apologizing for it. There's a reason why young men and young women want to come to our program. They want to compete at the highest levels, and they have spent a lot of time developing those skills, and the great majority of them in all of our sports, when their time comes, finished here at Alabama, that's most likely going to be the end of their high competitive careers. Now, that some will go on to the pros and such, and we want them to do that, but it's something that, hey, it takes time, it takes effort, it takes a commitment to be able to go perform at these levels, and I don't think that's something we necessarily need to apologize about, and I don't mean that to where you want it to take so much of their time they can't do the other things. That's not right, but trying to sometimes fit everything in a neat box when it comes to how you manage your time. For instance, somebody that is on our football team will put in a certain amount of hours. There's times where a cross-country runner is going to want to put in even more hours than that, or a swimmer or something like that. So it's not necessarily one-size-fits-all, but I know we have to do that at times when how we try to regulate what we do. There's also litigation that's going on right now that is questioning some of basically the foundations of what's taken place from intercollegiate athletics, and a number of other things. But it's an interesting time. But those of us who get to be around it on a daily basis, Ryan, you get to be around the student athletes, you get to be around the coaches, and you watch what they go through. There's a lot of really good things that are taking place within athletic departments across the country. And I think sometimes we need to do a better job of telling that story and the impact that's making on the young people, their families, on the universities, all together collectively, and there's a lot of good that's taking place.
How much, when you look at infrastructure, when you're looking at making improvements, involve the overall fan experience of keeping them? I know the television has changed the way that we view a lot of athletics, and people are choosing to watch it in front of a 65-inch LED television, but we still want those fans to come to the game. How much of you look at planning involves engaging and keeping that fan engaged?
Well, it's interesting you asked the question, because I was in a conversation recently with some architects that I knew, and we were talking about that very thing. What you're starting to see in design of facilities, new facilities, renovations of facilities, you're seeing a lot of different experiences for the fans. Some just want their seats and their concession stand and their restroom, and they're great with that, while others want a very social environment to where there's club space and different things that they can be involved with throughout the game. And at different levels, you'll see some that want some very high-end, kind of a country club type setting, and then you're going to have some that want something just bare bones, but they still want that experience to be able to walk around. I saw in the Staples Center recently in Los Angeles, they just built a club that have booth-style seating that looks over the court, and so basically they can have a fine dining experience while they're watching the game, the Lakers game. I'm not sure if that's necessarily the right fit in college, but it is interesting to see the evolution that's taking place, because you do have to give the fans a great experience because of television and the impact that has. But still, at the end of the day, when you look at it, it's important that we have an experience at Bryant-Denny Stadium and our other facilities as well, that you say, man, it's not, there's some comforts at home. There's no doubt about it, but it's still a much better experience being at the game and being part of that environment.
What's on the first to-do list when you talk about facility upgrades?
Well, I'm not sure if I'm ready to show my cards quite yet. Right now, we do have a facility master plan. We spent time trying to understand that, be engaged in that. And at the same time, too, I've started a kind of in-depth facility tour where I'm going around looking at them. I tweeted the other day when I was out at Bryant-Denny Stadium to let folks know I was there. And I think we spent 3 hours in the stadium, and we still didn't get everywhere. And so once we get done with those things, obviously work with President Bell and the trustees on what's working within the priorities of the university as well, we'll start to develop some of those. I've obviously from our fan base, I've heard a lot already about Coleman Coliseum, and that'll be something we take a look at and decide what next steps are there. But we've got a really good foundation, really good infrastructure, and at the same time, too, it's very important that you maintain that and you keep that up, and that's very expensive in its own right. And every new facility you bring on board, that adds to the cost of that. And I want to make sure whatever we do have, that we have that's first class, that's well done, that represents our athletics department, our university in the manner that we all want to be represented.
I look at Nick Saban, and I look at certainly his salary as a priority. Make sure he stays happy here in Tuscaloosa. He's created a lot of us a job and a local economic impact here in Tuscaloosa. As I look at other coaches that have not accomplished nowhere near what he's accomplished, closing in on a salary there, will that be examined, and will that be something that you look at, making sure that Nick Saban maintains one of those highest-paid college athletic coaches in the country?
I think the job that Coach Saban has done here, it's really immeasurable as far as how that relates to compensation. It's going to be very important that we are competitive and show our appreciation for what he and his staff have done, and that'll be something that will be very important to us this year and going forward.
Final question, Athletic Director Greg Byrne here. I put out on Twitter, and I'm sure you probably saw him as well. Coleman Coliseum was one of the questions that you've already addressed. But a lot of fans want to know if you would be in support of considering bringing back a little tradition here inside Bryant-Denny Stadium, Dixieland Delight. Have you talked about it? I know it's not I know it's, listen, and I know this sounds crazy for a radio guy, but I put the question out, and that's always, I want to keep the fans, make sure, and I probably received 50 or 75. Ask him about Dixieland Delight, and I'm just throwing it out there for the fans. That's a fan question.
Sure, Ryan. I get why it's asked. Obviously, that's been a really good tradition here, and we're trying to get our arms around. I'm trying to get my arms around all of our traditions, and the ones maybe that we've done that we're doing today, and the ones maybe we've done in the past, are what's ahead for the future. And I understand that's been one that the fan base has been passionate about. I think what is important, just bigger pictures, whatever we do, let's make sure we do it right. We do it where there's a lot of pride in what takes place, and I think if we can incorporate that in any tradition that we have and that we do, that'll be one of the drivers. And how that affects Dixieland Delight, I'm not sure at this point, but I have heard that, and I've seen all the videos and all those things, and one of the great traditions in college football is a Saturday at Bryant-Denny Stadium, and very excited to be a part of that in the future.
Well, I tell you what, you work on Dixieland Delight, and I'll see if I can teach the fans to remove a few of those words that might be offensive, and we'll make a handshake agreement. But, I mean, somebody does a 4-hour show dedicated to Alabama athletics. You wouldn't believe the times that I have calls about it. So that's why I brought it up. Hey, listen, thanks again. I hope you'll come back on it in the future and talk more, but excited to have you here in Tuscaloosa, excited about the brand that you continue to enhance, and excited to see where you take this athletic department in the next few years.
Thanks, Ryan. Sure appreciate the time. Roll Tide.